There are four legitimate contenders in the National League West, and none of those contenders play in Colorado. So let's get the Colorado perspective on what could be the toughest division in all of baseball.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to a Locked On MLB, Locked On Rockies crossover. These are the podcasts, these are the stories where we're either going to talk about all of Major League Baseball or your 2025 World Series champion, Colorado Rockies. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Follow us at LockedOnMLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is to leave a message right here in the YouTube comments. But I'm not doing this alone. It's a crossover. And I am Paul Francis Sullivan. That's one too few Paul Francises for one show. So let's bring in Paul Francis Holden, who please call Paul Holden. Hey, Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Sully. Can you hear me from all the way down here in the basement of all of baseball? Can you hear me down here, Sully?
Yeah, that's a little well, you know what? Well, before we get into it, that's how do you like that? That's an analytical breakdown of the Rockies so far. Oh, jeez. Oh my God. Oh dear Lord. Tell people where they can follow you.
You can find us Locked On Rockies. Like you said, best way to get a hold of the show and let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies is to head to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Lots of fired up Rockies fans lately, Sully, and lots of people really upset on how this season has gone and has followed up 2 seasons of 100 losses. It's tough times in Colorado, but find us on YouTube there. That's the best place to find the show. Locked On Rockies there on YouTube.
Hey, you're a quarter of the way through another 100 loss season. This is
already.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even celebrated Cinco de Mayo yet, and you're already a quarter of the way through the century mark there. Tell you what, we're gonna forego the trivia question today. We'll catch it on the next episode there. But you and I were chatting the other day as we do, and it is an interesting situation. This is kind of like what happened last year with the Chicago White Sox, where the other 4 division teams in their division had winning records, and 3 of them made it to the postseason. It's a similar situation going on in the West, where obviously Los Angeles has been the pick for a lot of people to win the pennant, maybe the World Series, maybe repeat as World Series champs. The Padres are obviously loaded with talent. The Diamondbacks were a win away from the postseason last year, where they're actually better than the team that went to the World Series the previous year, and they acquired Corbin Burns, who's not been exactly lighting it up yet, but he's a quality pitcher, and I think that eventually he'll right the ship. And there's a new feel since Buster Posey took over the San Francisco Giants, and we're about to end. This is the last. You'll probably listen to this on the 30th, so it's the end of April, and the Giants are going to go into May looking pretty good. The Rockies are not. We'll talk. We'll focus on them in the next segment. But as you're looking up at them, tell me your thoughts in terms of this log jam, where really 3 games in the loss column separate Los Angeles from Arizona. What are your thoughts on the 4 other teams in the division, and how do you think they'll stack up? And who's a contender and who's a pretender?
You know, it starts at a point of jealousy, to be totally honest. I mean, watching all of these teams be so successful in different ways. Not that long ago, Arizona was losing 100 games. That wasn't all that long ago, where Arizona was not a team that was knocking on the door of the postseason and knocking on the door of making big postseason runs multiple seasons in a row. As for the rest of it, I'm not surprised. These are constantly teams that I think have been solid performers or great. The Dodgers have become, for many, the evil empire of this generation, this generation's Yankees of the past, the team that has no problem not only acquiring and spending money on the big names and the big talent, but developing quality talent as well. Basically taking advantage of every resource they have. And the Giants are always relevant, I think. Even in those weird down years, they always seem to be a team that can fight and stay roughly around 500 or win 100 ball games. They just know as an organization how to really utilize their ballpark and utilize what they do and take advantage of beating teams like the Rockies. The one thing that's been a big strength for everybody in the NL West of late, except for the Padres, with the exception of last year. So we'll see after the Padres, of course, shutting out the Rockies for an entire series. We'll see if it's that. The rest of the West has beat up on the Rockies and beaten the teams that they need to. That's where the Padres get in their own way. They can't beat the Rockies for some reasons, and we'll see how really they shake out at the end, because there's going to be a lot of NL West on NL West violence, and it will determine who postseason. But there's going to be a lot of teams from the NL West there. I think at minimum 2, but I don't think that there's I think it's probably even just as likely that 3 teams are there, with the 4th knocking on the door. All these teams have the potential to do big things because they have multiple strengths in multiple different areas. And I don't really see another division in baseball, let alone the National League, that's as good as this. I'll take the National League West against anybody in the National League. I don't think there's anybody in any of the other divisions that really pose that big of a threat outside of maybe the Mets. The Mets they got an interesting thing, but right now I think there's an argument that the best 4 teams in baseball are in the NL West.
It's interesting though. You and I were on what was it? The I keep calling it the gang episode.
The squad show?
The squad show the other day, where we talked a little bit about the fact that just a couple of, and just 10 years ago, we saw the 3 best teams in baseball all played in the same division: the Cubs, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yes, there was a time when the Pittsburgh Pirates were one of the best teams in baseball. And yet it was the Mets who wound up winning the pennant that year. And one of the reasons why, and this is an absolutely one of the things about, at least then, and it's still a little bit now, of how the playoffs were set up, that you had 2 of the best teams in baseball played each other in a 1-game playoff when it was Chicago and Pittsburgh. And then the winner of that game played St. Louis. So it was guaranteed that 2 of the 3 best teams in baseball would be eliminated by the league championship series. The Mets wound up playing the Dodgers. The Dodgers were no chumps, but they didn't have to play. There was central on central violence, and by the time the Cubs staggered into the league championship series, the Mets swept them. You have a stacked division, and last year the stacked division in the Central, it was the Yankees who wound up going. The Yankees had the best record, but still. The West is not guaranteed a pennant spot this year. In fact, I picked Philadelphia to win the pennant, but what the hell do I know? Of this group, who do you think is going to win, and who do you think is going to fall off? Or is anyone going to fall off?
I think the easy answer is, of course, the Dodgers, and kind of I'm in that mindset of until they lose, until they're eliminated, they're out. But I think the Dodgers are an incredible regular season team and have no problem locking up what should be the division title. I think that there's just still some variance in some of these other teams. It's like you mentioned, can the Diamondbacks get everyone going that they need to get going, and can they be consistent through the middle of the summer? And I think what it really is going to come down to of who is actually going to make the playoffs throughout the NL West, where I do think it'll be multiple teams, is how does your season series match up? And it's how do the Padres stack up against the Giants and the Diamondbacks this year? No one in the NL West can afford to drop any games to the Rockies, right? Anytime that you play the Rockies, you need to make sure that you're taking advantage of those. So I think all of them have a chance. I think, again, the Giants might be that one where it's like, we'll see if that can maintain. And the Padres are in a situation where I think they're going to be aggressive at the deadline no matter what. So they could be a completely different looking team by the time the second half of the season rolls around. So I think all of them, when you're talking about who's a contender or pretender, I think all of them are still contenders, certainly. But the ones that I'm pretty gung-ho on, the Dodgers, of course, and I have no reason to really doubt the Giants. And I do believe the D-backs get hot at the right time. The Padres, they got to put a full season together. They need to play clutch baseball in the big moments, get the production that we've seen from them at the beginning of the year. We need to see them finish strong and be the team that we know they are. Because if you got Dodgers Padres in a series in the playoffs, I wouldn't be hesitating to maybe take the Padres there, because the Padres do know how to beat the Dodgers. I really do think it's going to be the difference maker for all of these NL West teams is going to be how good are you against the NL West. That will be the difference between being that wild card team that makes it in as the second wild card, or something like that, versus, teams that might be on the cusp. I think there's going to be a lot of teams really, really close, and we'll see how the rest of baseball shakes out, because I just don't see as many strengths. But there's so much time left in the season, right? There's so many things that can go wrong, and injury, one injury could drastically change anything for all of these teams. And I hate to think that way. So it's right now, I believe everyone's a contender, but there's still so much variance that can happen as we get to not even the middle point of the first half of the season.
I'll tell you before we head to the break, I'll tell you the main reason why I think the Dodgers are not invincible. Yamamoto's off to a solid start, but again, he's averaging fewer than 6 innings pitched per start. Sasaki has been okay, but again, he's averaging about 5 innings a start at this point. Glasnow's already hurt. Snell is already hurt. Dustin May has pitched well, but he's coming off of thousands of injuries. You're already seeing that Knack has been getting starts. They got to start from Bobby Miller. They got to start from Ben Kasperius. I think that was an opener situation. But you saw last year, they had a battered starting rotation that was broken down. And if the Yankees played competently in game 5, or they brought in the right reliever in game 1, they would have gone back to game 6 in Los Angeles, probably throwing another bullpen game. And, their pitching depth was not very good last year in the playoffs. And we're already seeing some of the cracks in the armor. Now, granted, they've won 19 of their first, as I'm recording, they've won 19 of their first 29 games. And they've gone on some great, great runs. But you're going to see that pitching staff is going to force a lot of bullpen innings. They don't have an innings eater on that staff. They don't have someone who can go deep and do you know what? You're guaranteed to give us 36 starts of 6 innings or more. They don't have that. And inevitably, that will lead to a worn-out bullpen. And if Los Angeles doesn't make it back to the World Series, I guarantee you it will be because they faced a team that had pitchers that went deep into the game, which could be Philadelphia, which could be Arizona, which could be San Diego. So, your easy money is on LA, but it's that depth in their pitching staff that I think could potentially be their death knell. I'm not saying they're not going to win, but there is a reason why I didn't pick them.
But, and I think you nailed it right there. I mean, health. We saw the challenges that they faced there with it last year, and they were able to overcome it. To do it again and just repeating in general is really, really difficult to do. But just as I'm confident that the Padres will make deals, there's no way the Dodgers won't be active at the trade deadline and won't be able to use their abundance of riches, not only with bankroll, but also their farm system, to be able to make moves and bring players up. But you do bring up a good point. They have been facing these pitching challenges for a while, and to overcome that again and to go through a grueling regular season with the million factors that could happen, it's going to be tough. But there's a certain superstar that may or may not be pitching for them at the end of the season too. We'll see if that actually ends up happening, and that could be massive for them as well. But I think it's still too early to tell for sure if there's anything that you're really worrisome, because I'll say this. I mean, I think the Padres are looking at, Fernando Tatis possibly being the guy that could be the big difference maker to help lead them into the playoffs. And Corbin Carroll could have a season that sets them off into superstardom and make it, and really set themselves apart. And like I said, the Giants know how to be consistent, and they know how to do it. And now the guy that's running the show is Buster Posey. And what did he do a heck of a lot of? Win. So there's just a lot of really, again, it's just I'm just coming at a point of watching it from the Rockies fan perspective. It's just it's hard to find the flaws in these teams that we see come in and just not only beat you, but dominate you from a front office standpoint as well.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the team that isn't dominating you and isn't winning from the front office as well. And I'm sad to say it's a Rocky Mountain High. Did you know, Paul? I don't know if you knew this. Your Fire TV is also an Xbox. Did
Wow.
you know that?
I did.
You know,
I
you
know
can.
now.
All right, you can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with a Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe to sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football to Call of Duty, as easy as you stream your favorite shows. Hey, are you a gamer, my friend?
Big time gamer, big believer in Game Pass as well. I think it's a great service and pretty cool that you can use it with no console required and can fire it right up there on your Amazon Fire TV, playing the latest and greatest Xbox games, including the big Call of Duty. You can go check it out. Seth Rogen coming to Call of Duty, Sully. Pretty wild, and you can see it all for yourself on Game Pass, available on your Amazon Fire TV.
You can fire the Fire TV 4K stick could be a low pressure way to start exploring all the best games out there. Fire TV Stick 4K makes it possible to keep playing from almost everywhere. Or if you're someone like me, you get your Fire TV Stick 4K, everything's in one place from Netflix to YouTube and beyond. Heck, you could watch Locked On MLB through it because we're on the YouTubes. Or you can watch some of your great shows or classic films. I just watched the classic film The Great Escape. How about that for an
There you go.
up-to-date reference? That was out before I was born, and I'm older than dirt. But let me tell you something. This is going to be the greatest way for you to have your gaming and entertainment because I don't care how you're currently streaming content. It's going to be smoother and faster with a 4K ready streaming stick. Look at head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Lockdown to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. Yes, we're talking about Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Are you really a gamer?
Oh yeah, I mean, I got games behind me. That's Japanese Mario Party art. I got Luigi down there. I got the Mario Legos. That's like half of it.
All right. Well, I've never attended a Japanese Mario Party, but I'm looking forward to my first time. I'm looking forward to it. I played Pitfall.
Yeah,
Pitfall,
Atari there. Yeah, of course.
Yard's Revenge. Gotta go Yard's Revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Little Centipede.
I mean, you're going right down. I mean, back to the first.
Breakout.
Did you go to the art? Were you an at home or an arcade guy?
Well, we had the Atari 2600 growing up because they were state issued, and we
Mm-hmm.
had them pretty early. And so we had like Combat and Gunslinger and Space Invaders and the baseball game, which is basically three fielders who just run around randomly. It was more like kickball than anything else, but I loved it. I love it. And
Oh
then they
yeah.
finally made the one that actually had all the players, but in order to catch it, you had to go press up, 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 rover, like, and then you activate your center fielder, and it's another inside the park homer. Oh, good times. And mind you, the defense that I played on that Atari baseball is would be as effective as whatever the Colorado Rockies are doing right now. Um, we are we're about 5 weeks into the season right now, and as of this recording, the Rockies have 4 wins. 4.
Yeah.
They're playing Atlanta tonight, and if they lose to Atlanta, and everyone listening knows exactly what happened, they will be a quarter of the way through a to another 100-loss season. I mean, this team started. Let's let the record show they were at 500 at one point. They lost a walk-off game to Tampa
Yep.
in the Steinbrenner Field, and then they won the next day. And they go, oh, look at that! No, not bad. Not bad, Rocks. And from that moment, it's been pretty
Rocky.
bad. It's been pretty bad. They had an 8-game losing streak, which is never the right time of the year to do an 8-game losing streak. But beyond that, they went on a stretch where they went 3-16.
They have
They lost.
lost 15 of their last 16 games. Or I'm sorry, if that's if they lose today on day of recording. I don't know. I'm kind of lost, honestly, in the amount of it's
They lost a
awful.
lot.
They lost a lot. To be totally honest. I mean, and it's hard to watch. I mean, there's some stuff that you can look at and point at. The Rockies are missing one of their best players, Ezekiel Tovar, with a hip injury. Chris Bryant already on the IL with a degenerative back issue, so we're not even sure what's going to be there, and other issues. But there's a lot of things you can point at, and really the biggest disappointment is that this team has had some close games and close opportunities, but the offense has fallen flat. They've not improved on striking out. They're a team that I believe still leads the league in strikeouts. Michael Tolia leads the entire league by a long shot when it comes to striking out. Veteran players that we were hoping for big things from. Ryan McMahon has struggled mightily this season. Herman Marquez has returned to the team and has been a disappointment in a situation where I was going into this season saying, hey, the Rockies have their rotation, most of the rotation back that got them to the playoffs. There's no way it's going to go as bad as it has been because these players are good enough to help keep them in games. And while there have been moments for some of them, they've also haven't been where they are. I mean, Antonio Senzatella does have one of the wins on the season. Actually, I think he might have two of the wins on the season, but he gets hit very hard. Kyle Freeland is like the definition of a bad luck pitcher. I can run you down the list of a whole bunch of things. They lead the league in infield singles allowed and little dink doink things. There's over 40 infield singles that have been allowed. The Rockies were on paper supposed to have one of the best defenses in baseball, and they've been in the top in terms of committing errors. It's been sloppy. It's been bad, and it's been really, really frustrating to watch because this team decided to run it back basically from last year. They moved on from a couple of players, but kept the same coaching staff up until firing Bam Bam Mullins and replacing him with Clint Hurdle, another just, guy, a disciple of Dick Monfort. So, I mean, and that's not even to follow up with the prospects that we haven't seen really take the steps forward that we're hoping to. Starting to see some bubbling of it right now. There are some possible signs, but the hole the Rockies have dug them into, it's very deep, and there's a lot of very justifiable questions being asked about what the heck is going on in Colorado, and we'll see if the team actually does anything about it, because loyalty is their top priority, and I don't know what type of change they might make.
Bring something up here. Since April 11th, as of this recording, the Rockies are 1-14, which I'm not a sabermetrician, but I think that's bad. But the other thing about that stretch, they went on a 3-game stretch where they didn't score a run. But they faced San Diego and they faced Los Angeles. One game they lost to San Diego 2-0. Another game they lost to Los Angeles 8-7. They lost to LA 5-3. Then they had that weird 12-11 game to Washington, and then a 3-2 loss, and then an 8-7 loss, and a 6-4 loss, and a 6-3 loss. I mean, right there, that's about in that stretch of, what did I say, 15 losses, whatever it was. I just rattled off 6 games that were winnable. And some of them they had the lead in.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I've seen a bunch of Rockies games recently, and there have been times, look at the Rockies are holding on. It's 3-2, bottom 9, or whatever it is. And then you wake up and it's like, oh, they lost another close game. I think in a way, what you said is spot on, that there's an element of this that is almost like, yeah, they're not a very good team. I don't think anyone was picking them to win the pennant this year, but no one also was thinking that they would tell last year's White Sox team to hold my beer.
Right.
And last year's White Sox team was legitimately horrible. And I'm watching this team going, this team doesn't feel horrible. They feel, or at least not historically bad. And yet there's something every time a blue pit happens, every time a little rally starts, it always bites them. And in that, and I watched at least 3 of those games over the last couple of weeks where I'm going like, man, the Rockies look like they're about to win that game.
Yep, take the first game against Atlanta in this series for the Rockies. They jump out ahead. Hunter Goodman hits a 3-run bomb. The Rockies jump out ahead against the Braves 3-0 in the bottom of the first. What happens in the second? 2 infield singles lead, mixed with other factors. I believe there was a walk perhaps in there or whatever, but 2 hits that don't go more than 20 feet, less than 70 miles, a bunch of dink, doink, this, that. Rockies are down, only have a 1-run lead. Offense is unable to get anything going. They've just had sparks of offense, nothing consistent, no back-to-back innings of great offense. It's here's a little bit of this, here's a little flair, and then it's strikeout city. The Rockies basically average around 10 strikeouts a game. So as much as you're saying it's not, they don't look horrible, sometimes they do. They have played really bad baseball, and not to their standards. The Rockies are a team, no matter what you say, they have a history of great defense, and they have great defenders on this team. Ezekiel Tovar, I mentioned, he's out with a hip injury that was suffered in the first series, and that's a huge loss for the Rockies, not only defensively, but he was struggling. Maybe that hip was a problem, but there's a bunch of guys that defense is supposed to be their strength, and it's let them down this year. Too many, and so there's a lot of self-inflicted bad stuff that's going on with the Rockies, but right now we're seeing Hunter Goodman get into a little bit of a groove. We're seeing Jordan Beck, an exciting left fielder for the Rockies, we're starting to see, if you're in the tunnel, we're in the tunnel, right? We're starting to see maybe the slight little, like, through the crack beam that might be like escaping slightly, and you're not quite sure if you see it or not. There are these things, and there's enough time in this season to salvage something. But really, I think when I think about my biggest disappointment, it's not only with some of the young guys, but it's guys like Ryan McMahon, where it's like, hey man, we've been waiting for you to take the step forward to be this great ball player that you have shown flashes of, but you're batting under 200. You've already struck out over 20 times. And that it has the direct tie back to the Rockies of, hey, why can't you help this guy? Why can't you help this guy get to their ceiling? And now we have to believe that the Rockies are going to get the most out of this, out of a young team and young guys, when they haven't been had a really, really great track record of late. And then when they do have guys that are successful, they pay him $50 million to go play for another team, or let him walk in free, at the end in free agency, and move on. So the Rockies have so much more to prove, and they have a lot to prove, not only from the prospect side and on the field side, but as an organization as well. If you keep telling us that you're a draft and develop team, you need to prove it. And this is the year you need to prove it. You need to show us that you can bounce back from this start, that Bud Black still has the confidence and can get the most out of these guys, and that the coaching staff that you have can get these guys in a position where they can be successful. Because this month and right now, they have shown that they have not done that, and they have shown that they haven't made adjustments. All of their issues from last year on offense, they're right back here, and now exponential with young guys trying to make the break at the major league level.
I don't think it's a money issue. And speaking of money, check your bank account and wonder, hey, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and streaming and buying Rockies tickets, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You know what? When I started using Monarch, I realized there were also subscriptions I had, and I was spending money on food delivery, and I was going on eBay trying to buy Washington Senators t-shirts. Do you know what? Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is even smoother than ever. You can track shared personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right. By the way, you mentioned a player. I do my Who Owns Baseball every day, and I give half, full wobs for the best player of the day on a winning team, and half wob for the best player on a losing team. And a fellow named Jordan Beck got back-to-back half wobs, as he had a 2-home-run game against Kansas City and a 2-home-run game against Cincinnati. And back, he hit 4 home runs in 2 days, and one of those games was not in Coors Field, folks. One was on the road. Before we wrap things up here, we're running a little long here. Before we wrap things up here, look at. I think the potential of October 2025. I think that ship may have sailed. And I think that this is probably not the squad that is going to, um, you know, get to the playoffs again. But you have Jordan Beck playing well. You have Jake Bird pitching well. I mean, there are a couple of bright spots. What would be your success for this year? What is it or I may have to rephrase that. What are you hoping this team avoids? Maybe not achieve, but what do you hope that they avoid that you can kind of exhale at the end of the year and say, oh, look at that. Well, at least, maybe there is hope for the 2026 Rocks.
I'll keep it brief here. I hope they avoid being the White Sox and prove that they're a team that can start winning those close ball games. Sully, you nailed it right there. If the Rockies actually were able to come up with clutch at bats this season in big moments, they'd be able to do it. Opening day, Kyle Freeland had one of the best opening day starts in Rockies history, and the offense couldn't do anything. If this team can start winning those close ball games and hit the over, like I hoped, like our friends at FanDuel said at the beginning of the year, which was 59.5 wins, if you can just get to 60 at this point, even because that's 100 losses. I think a lot of people, we need to prepare for 100 losses. But if you can make it at least on par and show that you can bounce back from this beginning, that's success. You go into the trade deadline, you make some decisions, you move on from some people that are going to help you in the future. That's success. And the guys like hopefully Ezekiel Tovar, they're thinking this hip injury is going to bother him all year. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully Brenton Doyle can step into and be this leader alongside these young outfielders like Beck. If these guys can actually show us that they can take the step forward and that it took a month of getting your butt whipped, then that's a win. And mixed with just hopefully some of these guys, Chase Dollander, one of the Rockies' top prospects, if he can start getting in a groove where the Rockies can stop losing 8, 9, 7 games in a row like they've been doing for years, just start being a little more consistent. That's success. And I do think I don't know. It's always weird to call for people's jobs, but I think this team needs to do a total reevaluation of who's running the show, who's calling the shots. And if they make some changes there and start moving in a different direction, I personally think that would be a success because I think this team needs to get the most out of what they have while seeking some new ideas to start trying something new and start looking for help in other ways because you really are still in a rebuild.
My take, and again, I'm looking at this from a distance, and I cannot claim to be a Rocky fan. I don't see this as Bud Black's problem. I see this as an organization problem. And when you and I and a couple of us were talking yesterday, a team like the Pirates, or a team like the Rockies, they can't afford to miss on draft picks. They can't afford to whiff on their player development because that's how they're going to develop their team. And they're not going to be able to buy a superstar, so they're going to have to develop them and try to hope they pull a Bobby Witt Jr. and sign him to a long-term deal. And if you do that, you've seen the Pirates do very well with like Skeens, but they've swung and missed badly on some draft picks, as have the Rockies. And so that is a farm director. That is a scouting director. That is a general manager. They are not making the decisions. They have put Bud Black, who had some good years as a manager in San Diego, obviously had good years in his first few years with Colorado. You're not buying the groceries for him. And to me, if you're going to have 3 straight 100-loss seasons and looking at 2026, thinking, what do we got? That is totally on the farm director, the scouting director, general manager. You got to bring, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to bring a new GM and all them, they'll probably want to bring in their own manager. That's just the way it is. And this is Bud Black's 9th season with the Rockies. That's more than 2 presidential terms. So, at some point, you turn the page, but I wouldn't necessarily sack Black. I would say, hey, we need some new mentality. We need to put together a team, develop a team that could thrive in Colorado, develop pitchers who will, have people hitting the ball into the ground and not up into the air, and develop an offense that can take advantage of Coors Field. Because once they do, and I know when the Rockies are good, Denver is a great sports town.
Oh, yeah.
And they show up. So put together a team with players that they love, and you cannot whiff on the draft picks. And it should be an embarrassment to have 3 straight 100-loss seasons. An absolute embarrassment. The Royals and the Diamondbacks and the Rangers have all shown you can go from 100 losses to the playoffs really quickly. And that's through intelligent drafts, smart moves, and playing smart baseball on the field.
Yeah, and I think that's the great point there. Other teams have been in very similar situations and have found themselves not only in the playoffs but with the title. The Rockies are desperate for creativity. I will say the one thing though, I think there's going to be a point where you have to turn the page on Bud Black. You need innovation because it's just the Rockies are an organization of yes men. If you are loyal to Dick Monfort, he is loyal to you. And the Rockies at the beginning of the season have already said the door is open for Black to return. I really don't think this team will make that move, but I think this team is dying for innovation. They're not a team that really buys in and does a ton of analytics and stuff as well, where I think that they're a team that could benefit from thinking about the game a different way.
Well, you think about podcasting in a different way, and tell people where they can listen to your terrific show.
You can find us free and streaming on the Locked On Podcast Network, which is on all your streaming services, and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can fire off your Rockies hot takes and more, like a lot of Rockies fans are. Sully, I got to tell you, we have a lot of fans over there on the Locked On Rockies podcast, and there a lot of fans are really hungry for change in Colorado.
Well, and the point I was making on Black is, yes, I think if they're going to do a regime change, yeah, you're probably going to have to change the manager as well. I just don't look at this and say, got to fire Bud Black.
There's a lot more problems than just the manager, for sure.
They could reincarnate Earl Weaver, John McGraw, Connie Mack, Casey Stengel, whomever you want. Billy Martin, put them in the managerial suite there. And this is not going to be a playoff team. But hey, you're a playoff player in my point of view. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but leave your messages right here on YouTube. Talking about the Rocks, and hopefully they'll do something right soon. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Rockies crossover. He's Paul Holden. My name's Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.